I think the game theory is on. It's slower than people maybe want in this impatient crypto world, but I think countries around the world are going to be buying Bitcoin. So there's structurally more demand than supply in Bitcoin. I think all we need is to release this sort of economic gloom that's hanging over us. If we do that, I think it's straight to the races.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, Bitcoin having another red day. You could see we had this support that was holding us right here around this 111 area, and it seems like every time Bitcoin is attempting to break above this, you could see all these times right here, and even just today, we have been rejected. Also, just to make a point, we are still sitting below. Remember, we had this major long-term trend. We are being rejected there as well. And what's interesting is you're also seeing, even though, for example, you had the S&P having 5 straight weeks of green, they are having a little bit of a red today. So what is going on in the markets? Now, something that did happen this morning was we saw that non-farm payroll revisions were down 911,000, which is the biggest on record ever. So this is obviously not looking good. This is putting the Fed in a position where they may have to cut the rates in this upcoming meeting. In fact, most people are calling for a 25 basis point, possibly a percentage of a 50. But what's interesting is all of the things that have been going on in the background. There are the fears of the 4-year cycle happening again for Bitcoin. And some of the comments that you'll see on these types of posts are, for example, non-farm payroll revised down. This fuels markets' fear of recession. Rate cuts won't help crypto as recession fears dominate. A black swan event looms and a major market dump may follow. So this is just some of the sort of sentiment that you're hearing from a lot of people. We have gold really been on a tear lately. Bitcoin not doing anything. In fact, moving to the downside, adding more fuel to the fire that maybe Bitcoin, crypto, all of this was just another big bubble and this is the end and get ready for your multi-year bear market. Well, I'm going to tell you guys something. There is something in the charts right now. I want you guys to stick to the very end here that has only ever happened just a handful of times, and it is about to happen again for Bitcoin. And Bitcoin likes to punish those who get bored or they lose sentiment, they sell, they walk away, they forget about it. And that's when you're waking up every day and Bitcoin's just bouncing between 110, 115, back and forth. This is going on for 2 months. We're getting bored, and then you forget about it. And one day you open your phone, you check the price, and now all of a sudden Bitcoin's at 170,000, 180, 200. How did this actually happen? Well, I'm going to let you guys know right now that we have undeniably been in a very different cycle, right? Many things that never previously happened before are in fact happening again. So while certainty is a little bit sort of foggy right now as to what we could expect, I do want to point out one thing that a lot of people are overlooking that might in fact invalidate this sort of 4-year cycle and could catch a lot of people off guard. Like I said, make sure you guys stick around to the end of this video. If you do like this kind of content, drop a like on the video below, get subscribed. And before we get to the content, just to let you guys know, the Femex VIP trial was actually such a success that we decided to extend it for another 60 days. That's right. So if you want, you can use the link below in the description. You don't have to deposit anything, and you will get a free VIP trial, which unlocks a ton of different bonuses and rewards. And you can also use the Bitcoin Vault, where you can get pretty much paid on your Bitcoin without having to actually lock it up, which is a pretty unique feature. So if you're interested, guys, definitely check that out below in the description. So talking about obviously these rate cuts, there's pretty much basically 100% chance that they're calling for a 25. If we get a 50, we could see some massive moves in the market. Will we get that? But then the bigger question, is it too late? That's what a lot of people are asking. But here's an interesting hot take I just want to point out. So this is from Anti-Pro-Synth. Maybe there is no 4-year crypto cycle. Macro liquidity cycles have just so happened to align about every 4 years in the past, 10 to 15 years. Bear markets were consistently triggered by macro liquidity turning negative. However, for the first time ever, macro liquidity is about to turn positive instead. So this is something that we have to actually take into consideration. Was it actually the fact that Bitcoin was just following these sort of 4-year halving cycles, or was it just pure coincidence that it tends to line up with what the Fed is doing? And that is pretty much this clip from Tom Lee. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this. This has been going pretty viral, but he sort of explains why this might catch a lot of people off sides.
Hey, Tom, Bitcoin, before we let you go, tell us what you think. We're at about $111,000. The upside, the downside from here?
Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies like Ethereum are super sensitive to monetary policy. So I think that September 17th is an important catalyst. Crypto typically does really well in the fourth quarter. So I think Bitcoin can easily get to 200,000 before year end. I know it's a big move. It's almost a double. But that's also going to be a
double from here. Let's just hold on. Let's just take a quick pause. A double from here. So everybody's listening to this. We're at $111,000, and you think we, by Christmas time, effectively, we could be at 200,000?
That's right. One of the reasons Bitcoin stalled this year is the Fed's been on pause for 9 months. That pause all year, if you look at an easing cycle, that's only happened 2 other times, in 1998 and 2024, where the Fed began to resume cuts in the fourth quarter in September. Equities do really well. As you know, crypto is beta to equity. So I think it's going to be a very strong fourth quarter. Small caps should also rally, like IWM, but that also is really bullish for Ethereum, which is highly linked to small caps.
So the question is, okay, sounds good. So it's a little bit different this time. But the other thing that's different is gold seems to be soaring while Bitcoin is doing absolutely nothing. Well, shout out to Crypto Gel, because they actually pointed out that if you go all the way back to even just July of last year, this is actually what's been happening in the markets. You could see that gold tends to actually move upwards and lead while Bitcoin trades sideways and even downwards. You could see this is a sideways downwards move. Right here is a sideways downwards move between March and April. But every single time, Bitcoin catches up, and it could just be a matter of time until Bitcoin eventually catches up to gold as well. I mean, you just have to look at some of the things that are happening in crypto. For example, Fidelity launching a tokenized US Treasury fund on Ethereum. So real world assets are moving on chain. And if you want to see something even wild, more crazy, is the fact that, yeah, okay, so gold, let's say, is the original store of value, right? We have to respect the pump. It's been doing quite well. But the interesting thing is there's about $2.4 billion worth of tokenized gold on Ethereum, which is up 100% year to date. And these are these narratives that we're seeing around things like Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, right? These higher ones like Bitcoin, Ethereum. I can't speak for all of the meme coins, although there have been some meme coins and some other coins going pretty crazy lately. I don't know if you've seen them. They're not all going crazy, but I actually got tipped off on a coin the other day. I didn't take the trade because I just honestly was like, I don't really care to. I came back the next day. This thing is up like 17x. So I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but what I do think is happening is that because a lot of the retail traders are getting bored with the price of Bitcoin, you're starting to see, a little bit of altcoins pop here and there. But I think that there might be a bigger picture at play. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on, which is why I said make sure you stick around to the end of this video. You can see for the first time in history, the US is spending more on debt interest than defense. And it looks like we're only just getting started. So could there be a plan that the US has, with this Stablecoin Act and everything else? I mean, the new White House crypto director has confirmed that the strategic Bitcoin reserve is in fact a top priority for the Trump administration. He says they're looking for creative ways to accumulate Bitcoin. We also saw the launch of the World Liberty Finance, right? Now, I don't have too much of an opinion on that. I mean, great, they got USD1. We can already send stable coins on other types of blockchains. But I think the message that they're trying to send is that the traditional system is broken and we do need something much, much better, which is why I think a lot of these countries are getting kind of scared because the DXY, the dollar, is not looking that strong. It's not looking that great. They're moving into gold. Why are they moving into gold? Well, because gold, let's be real, is the oldest, right, form of the store of value narrative. But as we know, Bitcoin is in fact the better alternative. It's only a matter of time until they realize it. Like Brian over at Coinbase says, the US government will own over 600 billion in Bitcoin reserves.
But I think it's clear at this point that, Bitcoin is a better form of money than gold. It is provably scarce, just like gold, but it's more portable and divisible. So you can actually use it. Has higher utility, I would say. And it was the best performing asset of the last 10 years. And so for store of value, I think it's going to be important for governments to hold this over time. It might start with being 1% of their reserves, but I think over time it'll come to be equal to or greater than gold reserves.
And slowly and surely, you're seeing it creep into the mainstream narrative. Things that seemed impossible years ago, like ETFs or tokenizing stocks or assets or real estate, which they're doing, by the way, over in the UAE. That's a real thing. They have buildings now that are, in fact, being tokenized, or even having some NFTs that distribute the dividends to the shareholders. And another thing that you're seeing is the realization of how antiquated not only the banking system is, but also just the way that stocks are traded in general. You could see CBOE plans to launch continuous futures now for Bitcoin and Ether beginning on November 10th. And they're also attempting a 24/5 thing now, where basically they want the stock markets to run. I guess they're still going to take off on their weekends, whatever, but they're trying to get 24 hours Monday through Friday, because they realize, hey, look at crypto. Crypto never sleeps. Why are we sleeping, right? Why can't I send something on a Sunday? Why can't I send a bank wire on a Sunday? What is preventing it from getting there, right? Is nobody's at the bank, nobody's home. I can't do any transactions on the weekend. What's up with that, right? And I think people are getting sick of all of these things together and realizing that crypto is the better choice. And a lot of the uncertainty happening right now, it might tend to clear itself up around the Fed meeting, but like Matt Hogan says, Bitcoin really should be about 200,000 right now, but there is this suppression that's being removed. And listen carefully to what he's saying about a coiled spring.
There has been so much fundamentally positive news, and it's just been buried sort of in the background. We've caused ourselves to ignore it. There's the strategic Bitcoin reserve, there's the SEC pulling back on essentially every lawsuit. There's progress on stablecoin legislation. There's talk of market structure legislation. There was the White House Crypto Summit. These are game-changing positive developments that should put Bitcoin trading at $150,000 or $200,000 today. It's been suppressed because in the short term, this overhang of the economic uncertainty is weighing on the markets. I think if that is released, we're at new all-time highs quickly, and we're on our way to where I think we'll be at the end of the year, which is Bitcoin 200,000. So I think there's been this sort of suppression of really good news. If that suppression is removed, I think it's a coiled spring. So in that scenario, I think we do exceptionally well.
Is there anything else that needs to happen to get us to Bitcoin at 200K by the end of the year?
I don't think so. You have these three horsemen of insatiable demand for Bitcoin. You have the ETFs, which I continue to think will have strong net flows this year. You have companies. We saw MicroStrategy buying more Bitcoin. I think the number of companies buying Bitcoin is going to triple this year. I think the game theory is on. It's slower than people maybe want in this impatient crypto world, but I think countries around the world are going to be buying Bitcoin. So there's structurally more demand than supply in Bitcoin. I think all we need is to release this sort of economic gloom that's hanging over us. If we do that, I think it's straight to the races.
So this brings me to my interesting part of the video today, guys. This has only ever happened 3 times for Bitcoin ever in its history. And every single time that this has happened, Bitcoin has gone on a massive, massive tear. And guess what? It's happening again right now. And the interesting thing is, usually right around when this is about to happen is actually the most uninteresting, boring times for Bitcoin. And did you guess what I'm talking about yet? All right, let's hop in and have a look at the chart. So what I'm talking about is these Bollinger Bands right here. So I've actually shown these, and you can see this history goes back. This is the monthly chart, but we only have so much data. Obviously, we don't have data specifically on Bitstamp before 2011, which, I mean, really at that point, it was a really crazy Wild Wild West type place to even be anyway. But you could see that in these times of these boring, sideways, sort of even down consolidation periods, you have these Bollinger Bands, which tend to get very, very tight. And you see the center right here, the basis. Anytime that we're above that, we start pushing on the upper band and we have massive compression on the overall band itself. You could see that from the point of breakout, we generally have these massive moves. We had one back here in April of 2016 after a boring sideways, literally almost half a year we went sideways for. Bitcoin then pumped 3,849 Now, I'm not saying it's going to go that high. I do realize the diminishing returns, but we could see the next time that this happened for Bitcoin was back in October of 2020. All of these in line. We have the compressed Bollinger Bands. We're sitting above the basis. We're pushing up on the top. And what happens as soon as we break? Bitcoin goes up 404%. We even actually had one quite recently right here. This actually happened just in November of 2023. And what happened once Bitcoin actually broke through? I mean, this could even be argued that this took us to the very top rally today, and that was around a 220-ish% increase. And currently, this is what we're doing again. Now, obviously, we only have 3 points of data. Nothing is necessarily perfect. We're not saying that history has to repeat. In fact, I did just say that we have things a little bit different this time, but this is speaking not necessarily from a sentiment-driven narrative or a fundamentally driven narrative. This is actually a technically driven narrative in the sense that this is basically a coiled spring. So when you hear that idea that Matt Hogan was talking about, a coiled spring, that's what happens when you get these periods of consolidation. Even if Bitcoin was to go down, right? We have a CME futures gap at around 91. I'm not saying we're going to go to 91, but even if Bitcoin was to go down there, now you have two things working with you. One, what you have is that coiled spring getting ready to explode. And two, let's say we did see some random 20% crash out of nowhere. I always like to use the analogy. Have you ever had a beach ball and you hold it underwater and then you let it go? Right? That is essentially what you would have. So even if Bitcoin was to take some kind of random dip, obviously everybody would be saying it's over. Mike McGlone saying we're going to 10K. I'm looking at this chart saying this is actually looking amazing. And there's going to be a lot of people that are going to miss out on this because that's what Bitcoin does. It bores you. It bores you. What's going on, right? Look, remember how long we were stuck in the 40 to $50,000 range? It felt like an eternity, right? And then as soon as we snapped through it, boom, all-time high, right? Where did that come from? We went from 45 to 120. What's going on here? That's how fast these things can move. 60, 70, 80% moves. And when you hear about these predictions like Tom Lee, 200,000. Well, how could Bitcoin double in the next 3 months when it's only been going sideways for 3 months? Well, because that's what it does. You could see right here, massive sideways for multiple months, boom, massive sideways for multiple months, etc., right? So this is what you need to be paying attention to. Look, on the lower time frames, yeah, it's not fun being rejected. We do have this inversion on the lower time frames, which is telling us that, yeah, guys, in the short term, it could even get worse. We could even go down a little bit more. But as soon as you switch this over to a higher time frame, you'll realize that actually all we're doing is building constructive bases. I mean, we haven't even come down here to any of these lower levels. The lowest on this EMA ribbon is around 94 with the 89, which is, of course, that's like my ultimate buy area. If we're in an uptrend and we come down here, so, I mean, if you see Bitcoin, I don't know, Bitcoin's going to go to 83,000. I don't think so. But if it did, in an uptrend, you'd want to be buying, not financial advice, right? And really what I think is happening is a combination of everything we've already gone over. And also we have just this zone of interest, right? There's always that time where once you break through something, you want to test it, but then you also want to have that reassurance to build that base, right? You want to build a lot of volume in these areas. You want to have these sort of stair-stepping patterns, and it's actually more healthy because if we were to just go straight to the moon, chances are this bull run would be over a lot faster than most would like. Yeah, it'd be cool. Everybody would make money really fast, but I think a lot of people wouldn't really be prepared for what might happen. Whereas building these types of structures, holding these types of patterns is really what you're looking for, right? Again, if we switch this to the lower time frames, it doesn't look as great. What you're seeing is pretty much a well, actually, I don't know if this is actually going to make a full-on cross, but you're seeing that we're being held down by the 21 exponential. This is over on the daily. Again, switching it back to the weekly, it looks much more constructive. The 50 has been holding us pretty much this entire run, right? Down here, we got held down by it right here. We sprung off of it. And again, that's sitting at around 96. So imagine Bitcoin falling below 100,000. Everybody's panicking, selling, right? We're actually just retesting this level. We come back up. We have the coiled spring. We have the Bollinger Bands. We do that like beach ball thing that I talked about. And that's pretty much what you're going to end up seeing. And I wanted to show you one chart that I've never actually pulled up before on this channel. By the way, I do want to give a shout out to Team Underground because I had never heard of this indicator until I saw this. And we like to look at the CBBI, which is basically, it combines a whole bunch of different Bitcoin indicators, and it sort of looks at how overheated the markets might be. So what this does is it takes all different indicators like the NUPL, MVRVZ, the PUL indicator, the LMACD, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch in here. And it basically lets you know the risk that the top is in. And the craziest thing about this is that so far, this indicator has actually never been wrong. And not only has it never been wrong, it's been incredibly accurate. You could see right here, it called the top at the end of 2013, right here. It called the top in December of 2017, right here. Now, even though you can argue we did have a secondary top here, which went slightly higher, realistically, unless you were accumulating down and up into this area, selling here wouldn't have made much of a difference than selling here. In fact, you would have just been able to accumulate lower. And you could see, literally within a few weeks, that pretty much called the top. And if we look at where we are today, you could see that not only are we not showing overheated signals, we're just kind of rolling around in a really basic area, right? And you could see the green on the Super Guppy is still full on, right? You haven't even had it switch into the red yet, or even just the neutral. So again, this is telling me that all these people that are trying to call these tops right now, I think it's just clout chasing. I think they just want to be the ones who say, hey, a broken clock is right twice a day. That's the saying, right? I mean, I guess if you just keep saying how bearish things are and you keep calling for a top, eventually you'll be right. But why would you continue to spread that type of sort of misinformation just for some kind of clout when there's so many people that, unfortunately, I hate to say it, have missed out even a lot of the gains from the 45,000 up to where we are now, simply because of all these doom and gloomers that were calling for this the whole time. I mean, just look at what's in front of you. Sometimes, yes, I enjoy fundamentals. I enjoy listening to the news. It's great. But oftentimes, if you just look at what's in front of you, if you just you don't listen, you don't look at what's going on, and you just look at the charts with your own eyes, sometimes they tell you more of what's going on. And what I'm seeing happening right now is a typical consolidation period where sometimes you do go lower, right? You can make these you can make these bull flags, and bull flags do go down most of the time. And you see these analysts, oh, it's lower highs, it's lower lows. This is really bad. This is a bear trend. Well, it might be a smaller bear trend, but when you zoom out, it's massive. And I can just say right now, the possibility of hitting a $200,000 Bitcoin by the end of this year, it's not my most likely target. But I'll tell you what, if you ask me if we're ending this year higher or lower than we are right now, every single thing that we are looking at in these charts are showing us. In fact, we came closer to a potential peak around the 69,000 area, okay, than we even did around the 123, if you really want to base it off of these indicators. So this is an interesting one that I'm going to keep on my channel for a while. I think this is a really cool one to look at. It also makes it a lot more simple than trying to do the CBBI indicator. It's a lot cleaner as well. So for the most part, guys, that is pretty much where we're at. And it is quite interesting too, because thus far, even though we have pulled down, MetaSignals did sort of call this around this area, hitting the first take profit target with their target 3 at around $119,000. So is that a possibility, guys? I mean, I would definitely check that out. That link is below in the description if you guys want to check out MetaSignals. Again, we are going to be burning those NFTs, so they will not be available forever, and you'll never be able to get lifetime access ever again. So just checking that out. And I wanted to end, I know this is going to drag this video on a bit, but I put it at the end because I know a lot of people probably won't watch this. But there was a very interesting post, a sort of video that came out, and they say Russia is warning that the United States will leverage stablecoins backed by treasuries to offload their $35 trillion debt, pushing global adoption, then devaluing the dollar, leaving the world holding the bag. I explained this in the Genius Act week ago, which we actually kind of mentioned as well, but I want to play this clip for you, but also keep in mind, this is not in English, so if you're listening in headphones, you're going to have to watch the screen so that you can see the translation here. But yeah, I just want to get your take on this.
Америка прямо сейчас пытается поменять правила на рынке золота и криптовалют. Вспомните, какой у них долг. 35 триллионов долларов. В общем-то, это два альтернативных валютному сегменту мировых рынка. Действия Вашингтона в этом направлении отчетливо демонстрируют одну из главных американских задач. Они очень хотят решить проблему снижения доверия к доллару. США, как это было и в 30-е, и в 70-е годы, будут решать свои финансовые проблемы за счет всего мира, загоняя всех куда? В криптовалютное облако. Со временем, когда часть госдолга США будет размещена в стейблкоинах, США обесценит этот долг. Еще раз простыми словами, у них сейчас валютный 35-триллионный долг, они его загоняют в крипту, в облако, обесценивают и начинают с нуля. Это для тех, кто очень любит заниматься криптой.
So to comment on that, British Hodl says, Russia just said the quiet part of the USA plan for stablecoins and Bitcoin out loud for the world and realized they can't do a single thing about it. Next step is the race to accumulate first and not be victimized by it. So obviously this video has gone on long enough. I'm going to leave that there for you. I want you to really think about what this could mean, what could really be happening. There's a lot of different ways you can interpret this. The way that I interpret it is they're really desperate to get into crypto. They want these stable coins. They want to be able to flow seamlessly into things like Bitcoin. And obviously they are having a lot of difficulty with these bonds. And we know that since these stablecoin companies need to have them backed one-to-one, it seems like you can kind of get both sides of what you're looking for, right? You can have the stablecoin companies buying these bonds that are really not making a lot of interest for others, and also at the same time you have all of these stablecoins to access crypto and potentially try to make those gains to possibly try to pay back the debt, which we know is never going to happen. But hey, I'm just entertaining some funny thoughts. Think about it. What do you guys think? So basically that's it for me. Again, friendly reminder, guys, we do have an extension on this. So remember, there is $1,300 in rewards off of this trial itself. But since you get VIP status by using this, that actually makes you eligible for another $4,000 in rewards. So just throwing it out there, guys, you got to take advantage of these, when you have the time. And that is basically it for me. If you guys do want to learn how to trade on Femex, for example, I do have a tutorial right here popping up. Obviously, they have a lot of new features that I don't have in that video, but I think the meat and the potatoes is pretty much there. So let me know what you guys think about the video today. I know it gets boring. It's hard making videos every day. That's why I don't make videos every day. But yeah, I think something big is a brewing. And I think one day you're going to wake up and if you're not stacking, you might be upset. So anyway, guys, but I know that's not you. I'll see you next time and stay crypto. You guys know the drill. Peace out.